Welcome to the Daily Edge. Steve, Jake, Mark, we are the Noodlebergs. Let's find the edge, and that always starts with our affirmation. And this affirmation is going to be focused on the journey that we take. And regardless of circumstance or obstacle, if it is what I want, it is up to me to find a way. And I'm just going to drop the name JC Escarra.
Nobody
who
knows that.
found a way. Who? Right. So, all right, some context around the story. The Hialeah Cannon, right? Like, born and raised down here in Miami, a highly touted, talented basketball or baseball player that goes on to have a journeyman career to Puerto Rico, to AAA, to AA, to all over the place, trying to find his way to the major leagues. And he was just recently added to the roster of the New York Yankees. And if you haven't seen the videos, we'll link them to in the show notes and pop them up where we can. But wow, unbelievable story.
So we talked about it this morning. Jake's question is the best question I can think of. At what point do you give up? Do you say, like this guy didn't give up and he is experienced? This is certainly not about money.
Can we set the stage of what he made $400 an appearance?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and he was an Uber driver, right? Like his wife is a school teacher. He was doing anything he could to keep the baseball dream alive by supplementing it with other incomes, and finally got his validation, I guess, or finally reached the milestone of making it. Because I'm sure this isn't his only goal, right? I'm sure his goal is to be a starter and to go on and win championships. And
would sure hope so.
Right. So like
what would be the point?
So like, let's just be clear that like a lot of people look at this as like, oh my God, he made it. Not really, right? This is just a milestone for him.
But you have to make
in the journey.
Here, right?
Sure.
It bought him more time.
Right.
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 I think that's the
changed
idea.
his life for sure.
There are many that never get that phone call, never get that interview. Hey, you made it to the big leagues. So he made it there. That's another notch in the journey that gets him closer to ultimately being a productive baseball player. But you have to get into the mindset of a guy.
I'll start here.
Going.
It's more impressive than somebody who doesn't have any plan and has some entry-level job and has no real desire, no real roadmap. Or I was talking about it with somebody the other day, like an exit plan of like, what's your long-term goal? Like what do you want to get out of
What's
this?
the vision?
Right?
Yeah.
Or like, are you working in order to save up money to start your own business? Are you trying to get into real estate? Like what are you actually trying to achieve?
So you hit on that for a minute, right? Are you trying to start your own business, right? The graveyard is filled with people who had business ideas.
Thank you, Les Brown.
That didn't make it.
They ran out of time.
and they ran out of time, or they gave up, or like I think it's something like 3% of businesses don't make it to 10 years.
Oh,
right?
it's higher than that.
So like there's a ridiculous amount, or sorry, 3% make it beyond 10 years.
I was like,
scratch that. What's the Willy Wonka? Scratch that. Like when he does the so like it's a ridiculously hard thing to do. This is somebody who had a dream to be a pro athlete, right? There was some validation for him early because obviously he was highly recruited. Right. He went to college for it. But then the journey to actually go from the 10% or whatever it is that actually get to play at that level to the 1% that make it to the Major League Baseball, there were all kinds of obstacles and roadblocks in his way from that. How do you not give up? Why do you not give up?
Well, so
let's start there. Forget about how.
So
why do you not give up?
Let me go here, because every entrepreneur, every leader has gone through this, where the people closest to you say, "You're crazy. You got to get
it's
it
done." Right?
You're out of your mind. What are you doing,
dude? It's
enough already.
It's been 7 years. You're going back to Puerto Rico. You're driving Ubers. What are you doing,
well,
bro?
I think that's one we talked about it on one of our huddles the other day. Was the intensity versus insanity?
Yeah, right. Oh,
there's a very fine line where it does become insane.
Right. And at some point,
you're doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
And they're not begging you, right? I'm gonna stop showing up to the pickup.
If he had quit, nobody has an argument. You know,
no,
okay,
he's
you
one
gave
of
it a shot.
he's one
Right.
of so many
Gave it a
that
shot,
choose
you
to go
did
a
it.
different route.
Right, but he got through.
So let's start with why. Right. Thank you, Simon Sinek. Start with why.
Right.
Why doesn't he quit? Why doesn't he give up and turn around and walk away?
Have to.
Because he didn't have to is a great fucking answer. Whoa.
He didn't have to. This is what I want to do. I want to play baseball at the pro level. And nothing else matters.
His wife supports him, right? Is like, keep doing it.
Which would have been
going to be
number one. If she didn't support it, he's
probably doesn't make it.
Well, this is obviously a rare story. Right? This is very rare. This doesn't happen every day.
Right.
Like, I love Shea to death, or but he didn't.
Shea would have been.
He didn't make the MLB eventually. Like,
he still gets down in the
still
crouching
out there. Like, you know what I mean? And so
the dream is not alive. For Shea.
That's like the dream isn't alive for anyone. And I think baseball is unique because there is that feeder system where you can play 3 levels of baseball. You can go overseas, whereas maybe if you play in the NFL, or if you play football, it ends. There's nobody else who's going to give you a helmet. Right. And ensure
they keep trying to like bring back the USFL and the XFL and the Canadian League, but like it's not it, right?
So put it into, I don't know the answer to this. How many Major League Baseball players are there today? Like how many?
Shay, can you do us a quick? I actually have my phone.
Yeah, I have my phone. What is the number? Is it 500 guys or?
Yeah, times 30, 32, 31, 30.
There are roughly 1,200 Major League Baseball players at any given time, representing 40-man rosters of each of the 30 MLB teams.
He got one of those 1,200.
One of 1,200.
When you were coaching, your odds were very slim. You became one of how many coaches?
119. I mean, there's 119 special teams coordinators. Yeah. I was one of them.
So
that's a good. It's a good parallel. It's a good parallel, right? I walked away. Right. My dream was to be a head football coach at a major Division I college, 10 years, 5 different schools. And I was like,
total 14.
Yeah, but I'm just saying 10 years post-grad, right? 5 different schools, full-time coaching, hired on all these staffs. And I was like, I don't know if that's the dream anymore. Why? Why did I choose? Why was I willing to walk away? For me, it really was because it wasn't necessarily what I wanted anymore, because I looked at all of the other things that went into it and all of the other things that I knew I had to keep doing in order to stay at the level I was at. And I was like, I don't think that that's actually what I want.
Well, I think this is the success stories are the glamorous ones, and they're the ones you hear about and the ones you talk about. And I think very similar to being an entrepreneur, pushes a lot of people down that path. Well, I'm going to keep chasing.
Right.
It'll work. Right. Like, I believe mentally. The reality is most of it doesn't work, no matter how mentally strong or whatever it might be. And I think very similar to him finally getting it is you're going to push a lot of players to hang around a little longer. The guys who are 25 right now might go, all right, maybe I'm not going to leave. Right. Maybe I'm not going to go. And the entrepreneurs
it became possible now.
It became possible, right? And you always talk about what Robert Bannister, who ran
Roger Bannister.
And
listen, it's a real story.
Right? Nobody broke the 4-minute mile until he did it.
But now look at you knowing that.
But I love what Mark said was I didn't actually want it anymore. Like, I looked at what I was doing within it and said, I don't want to do it. And similar to entrepreneur, like, I don't know that everybody wants to own their business. And then baseball, not everybody wants to drive Uber. They want to get on with their life. And I don't think it's a bad thing.
I'll never forget it. When you shared with me that you wanted to leave, that was a moment for me as a supporter of yours saying, is this just a
Are you
blip?
avoiding it? Right. Are you running away from adversity, or is
last
it
huddle,
right?
Or hurdle rather for you to get over? I didn't want to endorse giving up 14 years of your dream. I made you unpack it real time for me to go, okay. And even then, okay, I want you to talk to these 5 people. And, so, when you get real support, the decision to stop is.
Well, what do you have to do to make that decision? What are the questions you have to ask yourself? What's the guidance you have to go get?
It starts with, for me, right? This is my perspective. It starts with, am I willing to do what I need to do in order to keep the pace or stay at the level or continue to meet the standard of expectation? I just saw somebody that I used to work with, right, get hired at the next school.
Yeah.
This person is never going to be a head coach ever, for sure, right? They're going to keep doing this. They're going to hop from between being a position coach or a passing
Whatever
game
comes his
coordinator.
way, right?
They're probably not even going to be an offensive coordinator ever again. They're at their 13th school, right? And
oh God,
this is it. There's nowhere for him to go. He's in his 50s. He's at his 13th school. This is just going to be the next however many years he can.
and that could still be okay
Until he goes, ooh, nobody's here to hire me anymore. My network is gone. This game has changed.
I think it's fair to make this statement, because how old is this baseball player? 27, right?
Yeah. How old is? I'll find out. Go ahead.
Still
Find
young.
out.
You know,
Yep.
young.
He's got his whole life ahead of him. He doesn't have kids, or maybe he does have a kid, but like, he doesn't have the other priorities that even you had, right? At 34.
He's 29.
29, right?
Yep.
Like, and I love, and Gary Vee, talks about it, to the extent, tenth of how many times you could say it, but like your lifespan and the race you're running is long. Long. And I was fortunate at 24 or 23, whatever I was, to have your perspective on it.
Right.
Talk to a lot of people in the thing, in the profession. And one guy looked at me and was like, yeah, I've been doing this for 40 years now and I hate it. And I hate it.
Right.
It's like,
There's a lot of people.
Right, like I've made
Most
people at the end of their careers and the thing that they've devoted to are just like, I'm just waiting to get out. I'm waiting for the.
And I want to keep trying to drag this out of both of you. Is all right. You're 35, right? You're in a profession right now that you've been chasing, and it was something that you thought you wanted. You might be a lawyer, a doctor, whatever it might be, and you actually don't like anything that you're doing.
Yeah,
right?
God.
You don't like it. Like, you're miserable going to work every day. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. What are the conversations? How do you start building the roadmap to get back to a place where, all right, I'm happy in work? Because I think the expectation that you're going to pick something that you do at 22 and it's going to fulfill you and satisfy you for the next 40 years of your life is impractical.
Yep.
So I just had a conversation with an entrepreneur, a guy that I knew years ago, built a very successful business and sold it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just reached out to check in with him. And he was like, I asked him the question. I go, what's motivating you these days? And he said, I'm having a struggle, and he was like, this is this. And he was giving me a State of the Union. And we went round and round. We're ultimately going to have a call. But I asked him a question and he said, oh, that's the best question that anybody's asked me. And I said to him, what would you do if money didn't matter? And he was like, ooh, that one got in there. Yeah. That one is like, I don't know. Because he was telling me, oh, the market's down, so it's not good for investing. I go, forget any of that stuff. What would you do? This guy at 27 years old would do it because he did it without getting paid.
Right.
And it didn't matter.
Right.
Now he's going to get paid. Okay, that's nice.
I love that, because I didn't leave because I wasn't going to get paid. Like, the first job I was going to get was $15,000.
Right.
I think I came home, my first job with On the Ball was $30,000. Right. Like, I was leaving because I didn't want to continuously put in years to something that wasn't going to serve me. Eventually, that I knew that
which is highly mature, I got to tell you.
Right.
Like,
so as amazing as it was.
So the answer the dad's giving, which I think is the best one, is what would you do if money didn't matter? That's a great question to ask yourself. Why is that a great question to ask yourself? Because if you're willing to do it and money's no matter, you can become so good at it that you will get paid at the highest level of it.
It comes.
Right.
It comes afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do. I love who I do it with. I love when I do it. It's, were there times I didn't? Of course. Is there times that this guy was in a slump and said, I hate that, but overall passion for something, drives you.
Passion for the process, not the results.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and so that to me is like, okay, so the next question is, right. If money didn't matter, what would I do? Okay. I know I see that thing. I think the next question then has to be, what do I have to do to be the very best at that? Mm-hmm. Right? Because if you're not doing it, if you're doing it as a hobby, get out. It's a waste of time.
Well,
right? Like,
right. Well, that's Tom Brady.
Keep whatever else you're doing and go get your hobby.
Tom Brady got to a point where they were going to pay him. It didn't matter the money anymore. I can't perform at that level, so I don't want to do it anymore because, I wish there were more people who took, and said, hey, it's time for me to get out.
Because everything has a sacrifice.
Right.
So whatever the cost of doing that thing is at the highest level, if you're willing to do it, great. You found it, go. Go sprint as fast as you can towards that. If you're not willing to do that, then you have to keep searching. Because I think it really is. Like, we talk about this in sales, right? If you don't love the hunt and the conversation dance, get out. Because that's 90% of what you have to do every day.
And most people that get in the sales game, it's really the last stop for them.
Right.
They've tried everything else and they go, oh, well, I'll just go into sales. I mean,
you're getting mowed over there too.
I love Rocco, when he gets up in front of his salespeople and says, hey, how many of you thought you'd be a car salesperson at this point? And nobody raises their hand, so, when you do things out of desperation, or that's where you found yourself, this guy that you're talking about coaching, that's all he knows.
All he knows.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid of that at 32. I was so deathly afraid of that at 32. I was like, oh my God.
Me. I am dealing right now with a lot of CEOs that have gas in the tank, but don't want to do what they've done their whole career. They want to try something new. So that transition is crazy.
It's a lot about growing up is your exposure to different things.
Right.
And I think it's so evident that us as a culture don't expose people. You end up in a system, you study math, science, and writing, and then you go to college.
Right.
And in 2 years, you got to figure out what you have to do. And if you're not really smart, then your options are incredibly less. You're in sales, you're in marketing, you're in whatever those roles are. And so building that muscle, or if you see the baseball player who's going to hang around till 29 because there's nothing, and I know football players who are still chasing a dream that I'm like, it's over.
Dude, get out, please.
Over.
Put us all out of it.
And it's almost sad to watch because they don't think that they can do anything else.
Oh my God. And that's the biggest.
They don't think that they can do anything else. And so they feel stuck in this grind because it's all they've ever done.
Yet all of the things that sports teaches you translates
would make
really
you
well to
wildly
business.
successful, but it's this lack of exposure.
Being around so many coaches that were at the end of their career that were just holding on because it was all they knew. I was so deathly afraid of that at 32 that as him and I were unpacking, like, is this the time for me to go? I was really like, look, I'm good enough here that I could come back if something else doesn't work. I know this. I know I can do this. I don't really.
That was your security blanket. I believe once you leave, you're gone.
Yeah, you burn the boats. But for me, it was just like I had reached a point.
Right.
I had reached a point that I was like,
sunken cost.
Now is the time for me to go try it. Now is the time for me to go see it, because if
Not
it's the
38.
worst thing ever, right.
Whoa.
If I go another 6 years, like, ooh. And so that's a
Much
good,
harder.
so this is a good talking point for people, right? Like, the more responsibility you have, the harder it is.
Yeah.
Like, at 29, with maybe he has one kid, maybe he has two kids, but he has a wife who has a job and they have a support system that's working, you're able to do that. The longer it goes and the more the responsibility builds, the harder it is for you to go try that other thing and take that risk and jump out and do it. So, like, you can't delay it.
I don't,
you can't,
and I don't
just like.
I'm not one of those people that feel
it.
like magically it's going to connect after a bunch of years. Like,
no,
like it didn't connect for him that he plays baseball well.
No,
right? Like, he continued to refine his craft, but he loved everything about it. If you don't love anything about it after, I don't know, a decent amount.
Guys, I've been doing this for 40 plus years. I mean,
oh, you hate it.
And for all the ups and all the downs, there's so much I take away from it. I'm sure, that parts of the game that you miss are the locker room.
Sure.
The camaraderie. There were so many, like, you can't replace
You're
that.
never going to replace. I'd say this to every former coach and athlete that I talk to. You're never going to replace the locker room.
No.
You're never going to replace the competition. Like, I don't care. I don't care how many deals you do. I don't care how many President's Clubs you win. You are never going to replace that real 60 minutes of one-on-one battle in a team setting to be able to win
Gladiator,
something,
man.
you're never going to
I
replace
talked
that.
about
You
it-
got to find that somewhere
I
else.
talked about one of my LinkedIn posts about my favorite part about working here the last 4 years was that the fact that I've touched so many different things. Right. That I was in an environment that required me to not like everything, but to do a lot.
Yep.
And wasn't a prereq for me to enjoy all of it, and doing that really helped my muscles and my brain realize what I like doing and finding
You
it.
couldn't know what you like until
And
you knew what you don't like.
And so I think early on we either, and maybe finding some early success, it might be the worst thing that happens to somebody at that age because then they stay in it,
Right.
even if they don't like it.
Yep.
Like, oh, I got into
I'm good at this.
I was good at this. Damn, let's do it because I
Right.
made money. And then
Right.
they're 10 years down the road. That was me with football, honestly. I didn't love everything about it, but I was like, oh, I'm actually like, I see it. I get it. I understand it. And I can communicate. This works. Until I went, this can't be my life.
Here's a question. So this guy makes the roster. He's realizing his dream.
Yep.
3 months from now, he hasn't hit the ball. He's not playing well, and he gets demoted.
Yep. He
Right.
gets sent back to the minors.
Right, which is real.
Yeah.
You know
How long
what?
do you
Then
hang
what?
around?
Then what?
Yeah.
Does he quit or make another run? I mean, these are real life decisions. You are the sum of the choices.
If I was him, I asked for the shot. And if I don't do it,
then I know.
Then I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That would be how I earned the
You
right.
think athletes think that way or don't? Isn't there a part of you that
Yeah.
thinks
Some
no
well,
matter
so
what?
well,
Yeah.
and there's a
Yeah.
variance, right? There's a
There's
variance
gotta be some
because this is
practicality
this
about
guy,
it.
well,
I
and this
don't
guy's
know.
road. I would say he for sure has a growth mindset, right?
Oh yeah,
And he's not afraid of the work. So my assumption is he's going to get there and put it all in. And at the end of the day, if he's not good enough to hack
He's
it
gonna leave.
after doing that, like, okay, it is what it is.
Are you rooting
Here's
for
where
him?
we are. Of course we're
Are you
rooting
rooting
for
for
him.
him?
No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
You know, because at the end of the day, whether it's sports or business, it's always about the people.
I love that. Awesome. Wonderful show. I think, being all about the people is for sure the edge. I think the other thing is finding the thing you're passionate about,
And
committing to the process
owning your
of
journey. Like,
Ask
right.
yourself the question.
owning your
Right.
journey.
Money
and-
didn't
and-
matter. What
yeah.
would you do?
That-
And if you're not doing it,
It doesn't
start.
Why not?
It doesn't have to look like everybody else's. It never did. Take the success that you find from everybody individual journey and try to apply it as much as you can to yourself. And
Remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, be a part of it. Reach out to us. We're here for you to help. Thanks for finding the edge. We'll see you next time.